Hey, welcome back to the CRP. I'm Miguel Arati, and we are back with our MMA Grassroots segments. And I think we're beyond the grassroots nowadays. I've called upon an old friend of mine, Arias Garcia Jr. He's the matchmaker for Cage Fury Fighting Championships. They have their 78th event coming up in Philadelphia here in September, and that's what we're going to talk about. The bottom line is you know, he started out as one of those small grassroots shows that, you know, CFFC won. And now by the time you get to the 78th show, you're in a situation where, you know, you've got fighters who've gone on to the UFC. And probably you're in a situation where, you know, fighters from smaller shows are now calling you, trying to get on the show and stuff like that. Talk a little bit about how it's been the ride up to CFFC 78, and then we'll get into the card.
Yeah, Miguel, it's been an awesome ride. You know, it's kind of like you're kind of like a proud parent when you're able to see someone go on to the UFC after, you know, they claimed your title. It's our 78th show. We've had really great success. Our not only our production value, but the fighter value, the fan experience have all improved with every show. And I think that's one of the things you need on a regional scene to be recognized and to finally get a partnership, which we did with the UFC, and be able to be shown on UFC Fight Pass. It's not easy. Obviously, the regional scene is not easy, but, you know, when you have talented people that we believe we have the best crew in the regional scene, and, you know, we're getting recognized, and it's through hard work, and, you know, and you know this, Miguel, all of it really goes to the fighters that perform and bust their butts and train and put everything on the line. So yeah, it's been a hell of a ride, and we, you know, hope to continue the success moving forward.
Yep, at the end of the day, you know, I do think you're right to give the fighters credit. I think that shows in, you know, getting to your 78th show. You don't do that without having some of that grassroots word of mouth. Hey, they treat you right at this show. You know what I mean? And that's a lot of it, because what you do is now you become like a middleman between them and the boxing commissions and the, you know, licensing and all the stuff. You're right in between all of that stuff, so it gets busy. Talk about this next coming show. Give us the date, the location, and that sort of stuff, so that people can look it up there. I know it's in the Philly area.
Yeah, absolutely. It's September 21st. It's in actually Bensalem, probably about a 20-minute ride from Philadelphia. It's at the Parks Casino, where we have a special start time. It's going to be the main card's going to start at 2 p.m. We're going to lead right into the UFC that's in Mexico City. So I believe their prelims start at 5 on ESPN Plus. So they want to lead right into their prelims. So we're going to be starting at 2 p.m. We'll start with our main card. You know, usually you start with an amateur card, then the prelims and the main event. But this event, we're going to start with our main card. And after the UFC live broadcast is over, then we'll go to our prelims. And then we'll have our Facebook Live on Cage Fury Fighting Championships Facebook page. You'll be able to view the prelims live on there. It's a really great card. We love Parks Casino. We love our partnership with them. We got 4 title fights, professional title fights, and we also have 3 amateur titles. And I think 4 in total advanced amateurs. So it's really a good show for everyone. You're going to probably see one of these guys out of the pro, maybe a couple of guys reach to the UFC, and you'll also be able to see the next generation coming up.
You know, it looks to me, and I'll take you through the title fights here, that you could give each one of them a plug here, that you're headlining with featherweights, and you've got Pat Sabatini and Reggie Evaldo Carvalho. Is that correct? Is that your premier fight of the evening, topping the card?
Yeah, that's our main event. Pat is a monster. I can't believe he's not signed to the UFC yet. He's a black belt out of Daniel Gracie, Philadelphia. He's a monster. He's 11-2. He really should be in the UFC. But he's got a tough competitor in front of him. Like you said, Reggie Baldo, he's 5-2. He's coming off 2 straight finishes at Bellator. So he's no stranger to a big stage. And, you know, he's training right now in Glover Teixeira's gym in Connecticut. And that's going to be a great fight. And when I mention like people that like can go to the UFC, I believe Pat wins here and successful, then I don't think the UFC can deny him any longer.
Yeah, it looks like, you know, in terms of a resume, he's been fighting with you for a little bit now. So you've had him go through the progression. It looks like he debuted for you back in 2015. and you've used him almost half a dozen times. Talk a little bit about Pat Sabatini and his growth under your watch.
Oh man, it's been phenomenal. He comes from a great family. He's from the PA area. You see him under the tutelage of Daniel Gracie, just grow and grow with every fight. He's one of the nicest kids you could ever imagine. Very polite, very yes sir, no sir. He's one of the nicest guys, but when the door locks, he's one of those guys that flips a switch and he's just an animal. Great wrestling, great jiu-jitsu. His striking's good as well. If he takes you down, it's only a matter of time before he submits you, and that's what happened in his last fight versus Fabricio Oliveira. Filling out in the first round, but then he submitted him in the second. He's been great ever since his debut with us, and I think his only loss with us was a catchweight with Robert Watley, and it was a decision. And Robert Watley's gone on to do really good things as well.
Yeah, I mean, that just goes to show the depth. And that's just like I said, don't be fooled by the grassroots title of this this podcast. I am starting to go, beyond the UFC and things like that, but here we are at the, really elite and regional level, and you do see it in the title fight. Now, talk a little bit about Reggie Baldo, because just looking on Sherdog, he may not have the experience that Pat does, but at the end of the day, he's a Brazilian, and usually that means, a little bit of experience that maybe he doesn't just pop up on Sherdog. And also, him coming off of 2 fights on Bellator. Talk about that, because Bellator, commonly gets called the number 2 show out there behind the UFC. And here they come back to your show. Do you feel pressure to, that they've been to a bigger show? Talk a little bit about that. Talk a little bit about Reggie Evaldo.
Yeah. So first, I want to give Reggie Evaldo and his team major credit. You know how it is, Miguel. There's certain guys are hard as hell to matchmake for, to get opponents for. You did it back in the day with Eddie Alvarez. Pat Sabatini is probably one of the most ducked fighters in the planet. A lot of journeyman guys will fight him because they have nothing to lose, but you want to get a good opponent. So he's probably one of the hardest people I ever had to matchmake more. So kudos to Reggie Evaldo for taking it. I know he's not coming here to lose. He's a real, like you say, he's a real scrappy kid. I'm impressed. 2 finishes. I believe his last knockout for Bellator came within 30 seconds of the first round. I believe he's used to hovering around bantamweight, but he does fight between 135 and 145. So he's fighting for the title. He's got a chance, and I like that he's fought for Bellator, because one of the things about our shows that we pride ourselves on is, even though we're quote unquote regional, we try to give fighters the best experience. As soon as they're done, they get interviewed by CM Punk, and then they go in the back, and then they're interviewed by Jessica Penne. So they really are treated like the next level here, what they can expect, the cameras in your face, the production. So I've seen a lot of fighters who have gone to the UFC, like Paul Felder, most recently, I believe, Sean Brady. You listen to those guys, and each one of their interviews early on, they'll say, how was it like going to the UFC? And they would say, well, Cage Fury did this for me. They had, the lights, they had the production, they've had, people interviewing me like CM Punk, Jessica Penne. So it's just a real awesome experience. I don't mean to go off on a tangent. I'm happy to see Reggie Baldo. I'm really happy that he took the fight. He's 5-2. Again, he doesn't have the experience, but he's got the explosiveness that he can knock someone out quickly.
No, I feel it's an important tangent because, when you talk about it, guys, there may be fighters that on the regional level, decide to perform, hey, I'm going to stay here in the UFC, I'm not interested, and they're not interested in me, but they can make a living, right? But
right.
Most guys will have that aim when they fight on shows of this level, that maybe they're, especially younger guys, they do want to go on to the UFC. And yes, every match is a preparation for it. But then are you ready for the 24-hour intrusion that comes with, the cameras and things like that? And that's excellent that, that you're aware of bringing that to them. Does CM Punk still work with you? Will he be at the 21st?
Yeah, he's still with us. He's scheduled to be there on the 21st. He's a real awesome guy to work with. He knows the MMA game inside and out. And he just brings another, I don't know how many times, like, we're like the day before the weigh-ins, and Phil will go down and sit with a fighter, and they're just like in awe that people that know him, that CM Punk is interviewing him. So it's a nice little caveat. It kind of separates us from other regional shows that are that are doing well. But I think we have the total package when it comes to regional MMA. We have the UFC, the Fight Pass deal. We prepare you for the production value. We give you itinerary. We expect you to be there at a time for picture. We take pictures of all of our fighters before, and they love the experience. We have photographers on them. They love getting tagged and stuff. So I like we're a fan first, fighter first promotion.
Now, I know as prepping for the interview, we talked a little bit, and you were maybe a little bit like, "Hey, catch me." I'm gonna tell you my story in my head. I know that you're the matchmaker and stuff, but I know you gotta be in your 30s at this point. You're in on 40 and stuff, but I know that you're also a tough guy. I've seen you, actually take fighters and grapple with them and do some shows. And I know that you're also a real humble guy, so you're not trying to play tough guy. I ain't seen pictures of you like with your belts and things like that. But you got your chops, so I was thinking, why don't you fight CM Punk?
You know what? Like, Rob and I joked about that, but honestly, he'd kick my ass. I'm like 2 or 3 weeks older than him. I think I'll be 41 October 6th. He'll be 41 a little bit after, but I work out just to stay in shape. But I couldn't last in a 5-minute round with anybody. But nah, he kicked my ass pretty good.
Okay, good. Well, then that's good respect too. You know what I mean? But I didn't want to talk about that because I always thought that was cool where you had like the challenge. I think the one that probably you get the most props for is with Cyborg, right? Because she's such a big name and stuff. But I thought that was pretty cool. And as a matchmaker, you earned my respect for it. I thought that was cool, and I think it also helps you, learn the sport and stuff. So at any rate, that was just one of my old things in my head. I was like, he's probably around the right age. Why don't we make that fight? But let's go ahead and move down the card a little bit. The second title fight I got is a middleweight title fight, and we've got undefeated Kyle Dackhouse taking on Stephen Regman, or Reggie. 9-4. Can you tell me if I'm mispronouncing that? And let me know about that.
Yeah, so you pronounced both of them wrong.
Okay.
It's Kyle Dawkins, 7-0, really tough kid out of another great gym in Philadelphia, Martinez, BJJ Martinez. Really good guy. Before his last fight was in the Contender Show, and his 6 fights before that, he submitted everybody. He got the title in our last event when he fought, and he submitted a pretty tough guy, Jonathan Webb, who went up in weight to fight him after Kyle's opponent got hurt. Kyle went on a Contender Show, really dominated the guy. I don't understand why Dana didn't give him the contract, but Kyle went out there, dominated, and I think, he's a fighter 2 away. I just think he probably needs 1 more win or 2 more wins, and he's there. He's a young guy. He's what the UFC likes. He's a young stud with an undefeated record. And like I said, before this fight on the Contender Show, he was 6-0 with 6 finishes. So, He's a fighter 2 away. And
in terms of the opposition, Stephen Regman?
Yeah, Regman. Yeah, so Stephen's a unique guy. He's I believe his overall 9-4. Before the Contender Show, he fought on a Contender Show. He fell short, but before the Contender Show, he had 4 fights in a row, and all were knockouts. I believe one was by a head kick. He's got power in both hands, got power in the feet. He's training, I believe, out of Killer Bee Gym with Carl Roberson, who used to fight for us, who's now in the UFC. I respect him because he's gone up and down in weight. He's fought for our 155 title, and he's fought 170. Now he's fighting at 185. So he never steers away from a challenge, and it's a great fight against 2 people who their last fight was on a Contender Show, and I think one of them, the winner, will probably get a call.
Yeah, that's interesting. Now, how do you think that works? Does Dana tell them, hey, I can't offer you a contract, but, we got this web of shows, CFFC, I pay attention to this show, check them out. Do these guys come to you, or are you sitting around waiting? How's that part of when they come back to you, how does that work?
Well, in all of our contracts, Miguel, we're not stupid. We're a feeder for their bigger promotions. So we give an out clause for UFC, Bellator, ONE FC. If these guys get a better opportunity, we chop up the contract. We just ask for like someone like Kyle. if they go to the Contender Show, which we released him to do, that they come back and finish up their contract. So as soon as the fight was over, and as you can see, he didn't get the call on the show. So you probably wait about a week or two, because sometimes they'll take someone from the contenders if there's a short notice fight. So we waited. I reached out to his manager, Hector, and Hector said, "Hey, when can we get him back? As soon as possible to get him in there." So he called, and we got him right back in there as fast as we could.
It's funny, when back in the old days, when we met and stuff like that, a lot of the fights and stuff, you kind of almost do with handshakes and stuff like that. But now I see, things are legitimately a business and stuff. And more power to you. It's important. And, that's certainly, an added facet that was necessary. So that's how you get to run 78 shows, man. Just, keep adding to it and taking it seriously. Continuing down the line here, I got welterweight action, and that's got Jeremiah Wells against Marco Smallman. Talk a little bit about this one.
Yeah, so Jeremiah is 7-2-1. He's coming off probably knockout of the year. If you haven't seen it, Miguel, you got to see it over Mamiya Abu Ali. Hit him with a left hand, and he just Mamiya just fell in slow motion. It was one of those scary times where you just hope that everything goes okay, and it was just. He's scary, man. Jeremiah is scary. He's a former CES champion. He lost by his decision, so they let him go. So we were happy to pick him back up. He's fought for our title before at 170. He's taken on Emmanuel Wallo. He came up short in that decision. He's hungry, man. He's really, really unorthodox. He comes from the again, he's another Daniel Gracie protege coming from the EFC. Is another gym that Daniel partners up with, and he's just dangerous, man. He's real dangerous. He's dangerous everywhere. He's so unpredictable. You'll see stuff that you can't imagine in a fight, and you'll be like, wow, he's super fast, super strong. He's going to be if he wins, he's another guy that I believe is truly on the radar.
And he's facing Marco Smallman again. Another situation here where there comes times where matchmaking is easy. Sometimes matchmaking is hard. How'd you find Smallman to match up with Wells?
Yeah, so Marco actually fought for us before 2 fights ago, and it was actually a number 1 contender spot for the title back then. He fought Tajuddin Abdul Hakim, who was at the time the Ring of Combat 170 champion. Tajuddin wanted to come to test his skills over here, so we signed him. And Marco lost a real close decision to Tajuddin. And depends on who you talk to. You know how MMA fights are, but depends on who you talk to. They say Marco won. But Marco was a gentleman, took the loss, didn't complain about anything, went back to Detroit, picked up another win. And when this opportunity came up, I hit up his manager, and he was 100% game. So he's a very tough guy. It was a great fight versus Tajuddin, and I expect nothing but a really good fight between him and Jeremiah.
Yeah, and I can almost tell that philosophy-wise, it's like as a matchmaker, you might think one guy's gonna win, or you even have a guy you like working with, so you kind of want him to win and stuff. But at the end of the day, when you are gonna make a match and put the 2 guys in together, both guys have to feel you think they have a shot. Because if they don't feel that, then they're not going to give you 100% anyway, right? So I think that makes sense here with these guys. You give a guy who doesn't expect a shot, maybe he was still willing to work his way back up. After a loss, he takes a win, you give him a shot, and you get a hungry guy who's ready to add up. So very interesting fight. Let's go into the last title fight here. And this one comes in the flyweight division, and you've got Sean Santella taking on Blaine Sanford, the veteran there. He's the veteran champion.
Yeah, Sean is an awesome guy. He's 22-7. He'll fight anybody. He begs, the toughest people to fight him. He's so. I hate putting him on cards because he's one of those fighters. He doesn't deserve to be here. What I mean by that is he deserves to be in the big show. He was supposed to fight Wilson Heiss in the UFC a few years ago. Something happened with his medicals, and the UFC never called him back. It's a shame. It really is a shame. He'll fight anybody. 2 fights ago, our old friend Shu brought in Naoki Inoue, who was the youngest, I believe, the youngest UFC Japan fighter, and Sean dominated him. So really, this guy really belongs in the UFC. I really hope they give him a chance. He's another one of those guys where he's tough to matchmake for, because the people that are good enough to fight him and that should fight him aren't going to take that risk because they're one fight away. So again, you have people um, like Blaine, who's a prospect. He's a 7-3 prospect, and he's a hungry young fighter, and he wants to fight him, and he wants to prove himself. So Blaine is a great wrestler. 7-3. He begged for this fight, so as a matchmaker, you love when people beg for the fight, and you had to make it happen. So it's a good fight between a veteran who's seen everything, been through everything, beaten everyone in the regional scene, to a fighter like Blaine who's up and coming and what really wants to test himself against, and Sean, who I believe is high level and should be in the UFC.
Well, terrific. Go ahead and repeat the date, the time, the location, and where people can get tickets. I see that the website. So please go ahead and give yourself some plugs.
Yeah, obviously go to www.cffc.tv for tickets. The show is Saturday night of September 21st. Please don't forget the special start time of 2 p.m. It's a 21 and older event, so unfortunately you have to be 21 years old to purchase a ticket to be in the venue. 12 fights lined up. 4 pro title fights, 3 amateur title fights, 4 in total advanced Amis. I believe we have 6 or 7 pro fights total with 5 amateur fights. It's going to be an all-around great event. You're going to see, like I said, Miguel, from top to bottom, you're going to see veterans that are going to be in the UFC one day to up-and-comers that are making their pro debuts, that, guys that you really should keep an eye out for.
And as we mentioned as well, you're going to get a show. There's a lot of the show value that goes into it, with camera work and stuff. The fighters get an experience, and so does the audience. So it is a lot of fun out there for everybody. Arias, I appreciate your time. Always great catching up with old friends and stuff. I wish you a lot of success at CFFC 78. Maybe you could get some of those main event fighters to come on and do interviews like this with you. I'd be glad to continue that plug in the show for you that way if I make it happen. So, any final words before we sign off?
No, just thank you, Miguel, again, for helping me out. Anything I can do to help you and Chad. If Chad's listening, I do remember Chad. I'm following his journey with his son on Facebook, and I just hope all the best for him and his son. And you guys are awesome.
Terrific, man. Thank you very much. Good luck, and everybody out there. If you're anywhere near Philly, September 21st, no reason not to buy tickets for the CFFC 78. And we'll catch you later on the CRP. Thanks, Arias.
Thanks, Miguel. Have a good night.